Welcome to our second day of training with Mr. Mandla Lukubeni. We are quite happy that you have attended and completed the training. I see some of you have even uploaded your certificates to Dropbox. Well done to you. Don't worry, the rest of you will get there. Mr. Mandla is with us. He's ready to start. And Mr. Mandla, over to you.
Great stuff. Thanks, Doc. Welcome once more, colleagues. And so today what we will do, we'll just look at some of the concepts that are covered in the online course that I think are very important, which you probably will probably use in your day-to-day activity when you use ACL. So I'll just quickly share my screen here with you. I probably thought that maybe looking at the ACL environment would actually give us a good starting point, so that we know where to find what within the tool. So on the screen, I've got can you see my screen? I've got here the ACL interface, right? So in there, basically, when I explain this concept, I use an analogy of driving a car, right? So if you were to drive a new car, obviously you need to know where to find a clutch, where to find the ignition, where to find the gear. You cannot drive any car without knowing the different areas to find the relevant functionalities of that car. So hence, I thought maybe also if we look at the interface and just explain where to find what is what in the environment, right? So if you look at this screen, you can also open your ACL on your side, those that have managed to install the application. So the very top layer there, where I'm actually highlighting, let me see if you see the pointer. Just quickly enable the pointer here. So in the very top part where I am pointing, this is where you would have your ACL project, right? It will show the project name that you have open at that particular point in time. So that's where you've got the ACL project. So if I say, what project do you have open? This is where you would check which project you have open there. Are we together? Right. So secondly, the other area that I'd like you to know about is the menu bar. Can you see? This is a standard Windows functionality. Every application that runs on Windows is bound to have a menu bar. So in most cases, it's located at the top part of any application that runs on Windows. So you've got that menu bar there. The menu bar basically stores most of the ACL functionalities, like your commands and how to access a file sitting outside ACL and stuff like that, and some of the settings to set the environment, things like setting the date, if you want to change the date, how it's viewed and stuff like that, but we'll get into detail there. That's where you find your menu bar, right? So just below that, on this screen that I'm showing you, you don't see this area. Can you see this area that I'm showing now on my application that I have open? There is your menu bar. Can you see? But directly below the menu bar, you've got the tools bar, right? Here, you've got the tools bar. Not all of you will have that tools bar open at this point in time. But if you go to your Windows menu bar, remember we said this is the menu. If you go to your window menu and make sure that the toolbar is checked. If it's unchecked, you see it doesn't show like I have here in the screenshot, right? But if I check it, go to window and check it, it does show the toolbar for me. So the tools bar, it's basically giving you shortcuts to some of the functionalities in the menu bar. For instance, I've got here the classify shortcut. You see that icon here. ABC with a percentage. That's the classify command, right? But if I go to analyze menu, and I will find classify there. So the tools bar basically gives me the shortcut to some of the functionalities, right? So let me just move this away again. And I've got here, you see this area, this big area like you have in your Windows as well. When you open your Windows Explorer and you want to go to my documents, you'll have the navigator on your left with different folders and files on your left, right? We call this area the project navigator, right? This is where you find the project items, folders, files like your AP trans and so forth, scripts if you had any scripts. We'll talk about those later. So those will find them in the project navigator. The project navigator is about 3 tabs at the bottom. I'll open it here. You see I've got my project navigator with all of the project items like your AP invoice, accounts payable invoice, vendor, AP trans, accounts payable transactions, and so forth. But at the bottom here, I've got these 3 tabs sitting in the project navigator. That it does provide you a capability to do continuous monitoring, because you want to automate some of these things. So what the log does for every step that you take in your analysis project, it actually captures it. I'll make an example. I go to the overview and you see I have the customer table open here, and I'll just click on the payroll file and double click on it, and I'll have the payroll file open, and I'll go to the log there. Can you see the last entry is showing me opening that log, right? So that's fine. So what that means for most of the commands that you run in ACL are actually recorded. So that log, you could also use it in your working papers to provide evidence on how you reach the results in your procedure. You say, okay, I opened this file, I did an analysis on this file, so you'll use the log to prove that in your working paper, in your working papers. The other tab is variables. You'll mostly use variables when you are dealing with scripts. Basically, a variable is a container, right? It's a named memory, right? It's a container where you save some of the changing values. You probably have been exposed to the concept of variables before, but it's basically a space that you give it a name and save a data that could dynamically change depending on the circumstances. So that is where you will see all of your variables in the application. The other area is the work area. Can you see the work area here? So like you have in your Windows Explorer, you've got the files, right? Once you click on the folder, it will show all of the files. Then you open them and they open something like this working area. I've got this application here, and I go to the overview and you'll see I have got the payroll file open. You'll see with the small green circle in there showing that it's actually payroll that's active. So this area, the work area, shows the content of the file that you have open. I'll open the accounts receivables file and it shows the content of that file. That is the work area, right? Then I'll minimize this again. And we also talk about the views, right? You see at the bottom of your work area, you've got the default view there. So the view is basically this is an analogy that I normally make. If you are sitting in your house, right, you look through a window, you will see a couple of buildings outside of your house. You seeing those buildings doesn't mean that those houses are inside your house. It's basically a view for you to see what's outside. That's the same case here also. You've got this file called accounts receivable, right? This file is actually sitting outside of the application. You've saved it maybe in your documents, in your shared drive, whatever the case may be, and you are only looking at the view, right? And if you are sitting in your house there and you change the location where you are sitting, and you will see a different view, which means you can create a new view to only see maybe customer number, invoice number, without seeing the rest of the fields. That doesn't mean that the rest of the fields are not there. It just means the place where you are sitting, you can only see those two fields. So that's the concept of views. You only show what you want to see, but that doesn't mean the file doesn't have the other fields in it. So that's where the view is, and you can create different views. When you import a file into ACL, it creates a default view automatically, which in most cases, it's all of the fields that are in the original file. But if I wanted to create another view there, I could just right-click on view, right-click on default view and say new, and give it a name, my new view, and click OK. Then ACL will say, okay, in that source table, which fields do I want to see in this view? So you can just double-click on the field, and it will move to the selected field. So this area, this side, is all of the fields that are available in your source file that you've imported. And you are saying, I'm creating a view to only see these two fields. So you can just double click on the field and it will move that side. You can just highlight it and click on that arrow. It will move that side. And if you want to see all of them, you click add all. I'll just click OK there. And you will see I've got two views now, the default view and my view. In my view, I only selected the fields that I wanted to see. This doesn't mean the source file only has these three fields now. It just means the location that I'm on, I'm only seeing that angle that shows me those three fields there. So I'll go back to my default view and just save, and it will give me all of the fields that were there by default. That is the view area. And you see somewhere there at the bottom of the screen, there is a status bar, right? When you open a file, it actually gives you how many records that file has, right? So there is the status bar. That area will also see some of the filters if you had applied any filter in this file. Say, for example, I only want to see transactions for customer number 795401. So I'll just right click on that value and say quick filter and say equal. And those are the three transactions. And if I click on count for ACL to count the number of transactions for me, because it's not always the case that you'll see that is 3. You'd have like millions of records. You can't count them one by one. You need to tell ACL that I need you to tell me how many records meet that criteria. And you'll see in my status bar now, I've got 3 records out of 772 that have the customer number of 79504, right? So the status bar will tell you what has currently been applied on this view that you are working with. Towards the right of this status bar, you don't see anything for now, but when we are dealing with scripts, it will also show you if your script ran successfully. If it ran successfully, it will give you a green tick, right? If it failed, it will give you a red X, and I hate that red X, right? So another area here, you've got this area that I've got the filter on. This is the filter box, right? So this is where you type your filter that you want to apply on the file, right? And just slightly above that, I've got command line, and not every one of you have that command line. You would go like you enabled your tools bar, you would go to window and tick the command line. You see when I untick it, it disappears. When I go back and tick it, it appears. This is where you can run some of the commands. So you can only run one command at a time there, but you'll get to that level when you do scripting to run some of those commands from the command line there. I'm just going to pause for a second and just see if we did get that concept and if there are any questions there. Doc, you want to facilitate that for me?
Sure. Thank you, Mandla. Students, any questions? Please feel free. I'm so happy Mandla has given us the opportunity to stop him while he's presenting and ask any questions. Come on, Mr. Nair, Ms. Jagannath. Any questions? Please ask. Now's your opportunity. Don't send me an email or WhatsApp message privately and
Greetings, colleagues.
Greetings.
Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to ask, when I'm looking at the data, you said you will also work it in the government department, is it?
Say that
so
again.
Now you said you have also worked in the government department.
Yes.
So in the government department.
Sorry, I've consulted for them, yeah.
Okay, there's this spreadsheet where it contains data, it's called Volindlela, where you use it's contained a lot of expenditure that have incurred in the department. You can use that expenditure, you can use that spreadsheet to compile a report, a budget performance report. So when I'm looking at this ACL, it's almost similar to the what you call using a pivot table to compile a report where you can sort your information according to the way you want. Can this ACL do the same thing? Can it calculate the percentage? For example, a percentage where you're calculating the variance between the current expenditure and the budget, and they want to determine how much we have spent. And also, can it calculate the graphs, create a graph? So I wanted to know if it can, like, for example, when you're creating a report in terms of a PowerPoint, can you convert it also to a PowerPoint presentation? Thank you. I'll listen on the phone. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that question. I can just quickly tackle that. So that is actually covered in the module. When you do that online course, I think the third one does go into detail into the analysis of the data, and ACL does have quite a number of functions and commands that addresses those objectives. One example would be the command, which one is it again? Cross tab, right? So cross tab is equivalent to a pivot table in Excel. So what it does is just moves your records into fields and it gives you a nice pivot table there. And you would use things like statistics to run your statistics and see the statistics representation of your numeric fields. I'll just do that quickly for you. I've got the statistics icon there. I've highlighted the field that I want to run statistics on, and you will see it already shows me out of those 772 records, the top value there in terms of the amount is 5,549.90 cents, and the lowest is that. And it will tell me if there are any minus values. It just gives you the statistical representation, but we'll get into detail because the way I want to do it, I want to build a concept on top of the other. Otherwise, if I just go and do the command without telling you about the environment, you wouldn't even know where to find that command. But those things you could actually get them. Just another example, I've got this customer number, and I may have dealt with one customer more than once, and I want to see how many times have I dealt with each customer. I can classify there on the customer number and put it in a graph, and it can show me that for this customer, this is the number of times I've dealt with that customer. So you can work with graphs there as well. I'm just going to throw some questions based on the environment now that we looked at. Let me ask Mkabalaki, if I pronounce it well. If I pronounce it incorrectly, bear with me there. Sorry. Where do I find the menu bar in my environment? I've got the application on screen. Just point me to where I would find the menu bar. Are you there, Mkabalaki? You can put on the chat. Someone else wants to assist. Ayanda. Do we have audio issues today?
It's there on top. If you look at your graph, I'll use a graph. Files editor is that bar there. Files edit importer.
Okay, that is your menu bar, right? And where do I find a status bar?
Mr. Kumalo, go ahead. See if you can, you know where the menu bar is. Let's see if you can tell us where the status bar is.
I'm not sure, but isn't it the one that's at the bottom, overview, log, and variables?
It's the one that's just below that where it's got the record count, right? Record 772. That's the menu bar. So it is important that we understand the environment so that when we say go to the project or Navigator, you know exactly where that is. When we say start the car, you know where to put the key. You know where the ignition is and those things. So it's important that you understand those things. And that has actually been covered in that online course that you did last night. Great stuff. Now let me just put up the slides one more time. So on here, this is the concept of commands, right? So each and every command has got these three main tabs in it, right? You've got the main tab, you've got the more tab, you've got the output tab. Depending on what the objective the command gives, you would have some of them would only have main and more, but most of them have all of those three, right? And when you go to, I'll make an example with classify, right? You go to classify using the analyze menu, and you go to classify, and it opens this dialog box. This is the command parameter, and you'll see it's got about 3 tabs in there, and you'll generally find all of those 3 tabs in most of the commands. The first tab there will show you all of the key fields that you want to run the command on, the primary parameter. So I made an example by classifying on customer number there. So you would find that primary parameter in the main tab of this what you call command parameter. So if I click on classify, then I need to specify which field do I want to classify on. I want to classify on customer number, and it moves to the selected field, right? And the more tab, what it gives you, still in the main tab, you can also subtotal if you want to aggregate the values by whatever field you would have selected. In this case, I selected customer number, so I would want to also aggregate the amount. How much is the total amount that I've dealt with this customer, right? And you would have those primary parameters in this main tab. And the more tab, it just gives you added parameters, additional parameters. These are optional, so you can still run the command without using those additional parameters, but the main one has the primary ones, so these ones you have to select them. And the output, some commands, this is basically telling you where do you want to save your results, right? Do you want to save your results into a screen, right? Like I did when I demoed initially classifying on customer number. The results, I saw them in the screen. Actually, I did a statistics where I saw the highest number and the lowest number and all of those things. They just showed on the screen. Sometimes you do want to print them, right? You would select the print and the default printer that's configured on your machine would actually give you those results in it, right? And you could also put them in a graph. Not all of the commands put the results into a graph like the statistics, because remember, when you're putting a graph, you look at the dimensions that you want to see, like your x-axis, y-axis, 3-dimension type of a graph. So with statistics, it's a bit challenging or difficult to create dimensions from a statistical data. But when you categorize data, it's very easy to actually create dimensions from there. And classify command does have that capability to put the results into a graph. You may have a requirement to do a further analysis on a table, depending on the results of a command. So you would put those results into a file, and you have to give the file a name, right? So these are the different tabs for each command, and not all of them have got all three, but at least they've got the first two, right? And there are actually three categories of commands, right? You've got commands that are sitting under data, you've got commands that are sitting under analyze, and you've got commands that are sitting under sampling, right? And ACL has also put in some machine learning capability, and we've got another fourth category for only those that are machine learning commands there. So these that are sitting under data is the ones that are used to create new tables and kind of join some of the tables. So create a new set of results, right? So for data manipulation, you would use these ones. And for commands that basically just do analysis, right? You would use the analyze so that you can profile the data, get to understand the data. I used statistics there where I wanted to see how my transaction amounts are distributed to see the lowest, the highest. So you'd use commands that are under analyze. And sampling, it's self-explanatory. If you want to do a sampling, you would use the commands under there. And if you've got some machine learning, you need some machine learning capability on you can use these three commands in there in that area. So those are some of the commands that you can use within ACL. Are we together? Great stuff. Let me just pause again, Doc, and see if there are any questions there.
Students, do you have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Mandla. You're doing a good job. It's a nice, good pace. The students, I think they're understanding it all so clearly, and that's why they don't have any questions. I got some very good students and very clever students.
Great stuff. No, I can see that, Doc. I really appreciate them putting their all there. So this is a very important concept that I want to bring about. So for any data analysis that you do have to follow some sort of a process, right? And on here, there's a very nice acronym that I normally use, which is used by the data analysts in the ACL profession, called PIPER, which is the first letter of every step in this data analysis cycle. So you've got your plan, you've got your import, you've got your prepare, you've got your analyze, you've got your report. You do have to follow this in any data analytics project that you do. You start off by planning. In there, that's where you determine the objectives. What do you want to achieve? You are doing we are doing a payroll audit, right? And in the planning stage, you want to determine what objectives are you trying to achieve. Do you want to see if there are any ghost employees? Do you want to see if there are any duplicate salaries being paid? You want to see if there are any employees that are not paying tax, payee. You want to see if there are any double dipping in terms of the bonus, because generally you have one bonus per year. So you want to see if someone was paid more than once in terms of bonus. So you identify those. You identify those at the beginning of your project, at the planning stage. You do also have to determine the what you call your audience in terms of who are you going to report these results to. In my experience, I've realized that when I've got to report to technical guys, to analysts, I need to give them the results in an Excel format, where they will see line by line in terms of the transactions that are exceptions. But if you are reporting to senior management, like your C-suits, CIOs, CFOs, and CEOs, those individuals there at that level are not really concerned about the actual line items. They want aggregated data. So it means you must put the data in a graphical representation, right? So that they can, in a few seconds, make a decision there without going through line by line. So you determine those things at the planning stage, right? And see if you need resources, what type of skills you need. You need some data. Who do you need to talk to get that data? So you need to do that at the planning stage. The second stage is the actual importing of the data. You already identified where the data, what type of data is at the planning stage, and you actually do the actual import of the data and put it into ACL for analysis. And once that data is put into ACL, right, you then prepare the data. Some of the data is not clean, right? You need to clean it up so that you have good results there. There's a term, garbage in, garbage out. You import bad data and you analyze bad data. Obviously, your results will also be bad there. So you do need to prepare that type of data then. Then you go to the actual analysis. You analyze the data there, achieving the objectives that you had set out in your planning stage. And remember, I indicated in the planning stage that you do need to determine or identify the audience that you're going to be reporting to. That report that you do at reporting stage has to talk to the audience that you are reporting to. And these are the stages of your data analysis following a PIPER. That's the acronym that I use. PIPER, which stands for Planning, Import, Prepare, Analyze, and Report. I'll pause there for another 5-10 seconds to see if we did get. I see Bonginkosi, you are part of the team. Just to probe you there. What stages do one need to follow when doing a data analysis project? What stages does one need to follow there?
It's PIPER, which is planning.
Yes.
It's planning.
Yes, thanks. It's fine. Don't give me the rest. It's PIPER, and you gave me planning there. Hadebe, which one is the next?
Import.
Import. And which one is the next, Simelane? Are you there? So looking at the acronym PIPER, the first P stands for planning, the I stands for import, the other P stands for preparation, and the A stands for analysis, and the R stands for reporting. That's PIPER. Remember that acronym there. Right. Great stuff. Then let's quickly talk about expressions, right? So this is what you will cover in the next online course that you will do. You will cover expressions and filters. So ACL uses expressions to either create filters or to create computed fields, right? Computed fields are basically virtual fields. Say, for example, your data has got your your gross amount, which is the amount that you get paid before deductions, right? Then it also tells you that this is your tax. It gives you the tax percentage. So you've got your tax there and you've got the different deductions there. And at the end of the day, you have the net amount, which is the amount that you take home after all of the deductions. And say, for example, you want to verify that that net was in fact calculated correctly by your system controls. You will recreate that field using a computed field, using expressions by creating a virtual field or a computed field. And you can also use filters there. And there are two types of filters. You've got a view filter. This is a filter that you apply within the working space of your project. I've got this here, and I did apply a filter in the customer number. I selected the customer number and I said apply there. And a view filter is also known as a global filter, which is why you see on my status bar I've got global and the filter that's currently applied. So that's one type of a filter. And another type of a filter is a command filter. Remember, I showed you the command parameters, and I indicated that for each and every command, you do have main parameters there that you have to apply the command on. I'll use the classifier again And I said the main tab has got the primary parameters, but you'll notice here in the main tab, you also have a if. So this is where you would do your filter, which is called the command filter. So the filter that's only applied for that command, that is called a command filter there. And when you are working with filters, you do need to think about how the data that you are working with is formatted. I mentioned yesterday that when you are looking at character data, you must put it in double quotes. It must be formatted within double quotes, right? And I said when you're looking at working with your data, it must be formatted in single backward quotes, right? When you are looking at amount or numeric data, you don't have to format, but you do need to consider the decimals there. Are we together? So those are the types of filters that we can work with. So what ACL does when it looks at an expression, it evaluates like your normal arithmetic. It evaluates from left to right. Say, for example, look at this expression that we've got here. We are saying invoice amount greater than 1,000. So it will evaluate from left to right. This gives you a logical expression to say, is it true or is it false? So basically, I'm filtering all the invoice amounts that are greater than 10,000 using that expression there. Or you could use the expression to manipulate the data. Say you've got a field that is a character field that has names captured in there in a non-formal way. Say, for example, you've got M master there, and you look at the M master, you see the name, it's all in capital letters. Say it was in small letters, you would use this function called upper to change it to be in all capital letters, right? And you can use this expression as well to multiply, because this is a numeric, you want 6% of the invoice amount, and 6% in a fraction format is 0.06. So you say it's invoice amount times that that percentage there to get the 6% tax of the invoice amount. There is a date also. You can just add to the date to get the date after 30 days. Say you want to see all of the invoices that have not been paid for over 30 days. So you add 30 days to that invoice date there. Are we together? And this actually follows your normal arithmetic in terms of the order of precedence. I think here in SA, we use BODMAS, right? You always know that you start with the brackets when you are evaluating an expression, and you do BODMAS. What does O stand for on BODMAS? B for brackets. What does O stand for? Does anyone want to help there? So you use that arithmetic, but if you want to modify the order of precedence, you do need to use parentheses, the brackets. You know that multiply, it comes first before addition, right? But if you want to start with addition, you need to put those in brackets so that it modifies the order of precedence there. I'll pause one more time and see if there are any questions there. Doc, you wanna facilitate that?
Yes.
Mr. Mandla, can you repeat that?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Could Mr. Mandla repeat what you just said now?
The concept of arithmetic.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. That.
Great stuff. So I was explaining the concept of expressions, and I was saying that ACL does read your expressions from left to right, right? Normally, like you would also follow in arithmetic. And if you know when you're working with an expression, you have to follow that BODMAS in terms of the order of precedence, that you start with brackets. You cannot start with add following that BODMAS. If you did maths in high school, you'll remember that. And if you want to change or modify the order of precedence, you do need to use parentheses, which is brackets to modify the order of precedence. Let me just quickly make an example here. I'll just open this on here. So you know, if you're saying 5 times 2 plus 4, right? So how would you solve that problem there? You would follow BODMAS. You know, you always have to start with the multiplication part, right? Then the product of this, you will add it to 4, right? Because of BODMAS. But if, say, for example, you want to add first, then you would modify that by putting the brackets between those ones inside the brackets to modify the order of precedence there, to say, okay, I know multiply comes first before addition, but because I have used those to modify the order of precedence, it means I must start with this one, right? That's what that order of precedence, that's what that order of precedence can be modified. Is it any better there? Was it Hadeb who asked?
Yes, thank you.
Great stuff. I think what we can do now, we can just quickly go on to the course online. And I just want to show you how you would then go and do the next one that I want you guys to enroll in. Are you still there? Let me just stop sharing.
Yes, please, Mr. Mandla, do that.
Yeah. So there's a second one that I need you to do. If you could also log in your Launchpad. And those individuals that did not do the previous one, they need to start with that because it builds on that concept there. Are we following? Let me know if you can see my screen. Right.
Not as yet, Mr. Mandla.
You should see
coming
it.
up.
Yeah. So then you go to Academy, right? And it will show on here if you've done the course, and it will tell you the what is the status of your course, right? How far you've gone with that. So what you would then do, you click on courses, right? And you click this is the one that you would have done. Then I need you to do the filters one, which talks more about the expressions there. You click on that one. It will open in another window, and you click on get course like you did with the other one, basics of analytics, and you click on start, right? Then enroll in that one. So this one is applying filters and creating computed fields. Are we together?
Yes.
Great stuff. And this one builds on that basics of analytics, right? And I do want to ask you to make time to do both of these courses, courses, because tomorrow we'll actually do a test on both of them and get a CPE certificate. This one will take about, I think also it will take roughly 1 hour, 30 minutes for you. Okay, this one takes 3 hours, which is a bit lengthy, but it's fine. You can do that. Any questions on what we've covered so far? Doc, can I hand over to you?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Mandla, sir. Yes, I'm sure my students are going to do this course this afternoon. Some of them have already completed it. I had a look at they already received the certification in the basics. So this should be easy as pie. And Mr. Mandla, I just want to go back to what you spoke about: planning, implementing, analyzing, and reporting. For those students that are going to embark on a master's study, which I'd like for them to do, they will be doing a planning of a proposal, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mandla, they will be collecting data either in the form of interviews or questionnaires, or looking at literature to find out what was said about the topic that they want to do. And ultimately, they're going to be analyzing this data, and they will be reporting, meaning they will be writing up their dissertation and their thesis. So what you spoke about in terms of the phases of data analysis, Mr. Mandla, is very, very important, because one day I'd like to see or hear that some of the students sitting in this class indeed went to and registered for a master's, whether it's a DUT or not, and ultimately maybe they will also get their PhD, hopefully taking after their lecturer, right? So that was a very, very important slide that you had put on, Mr. Mandla. Oh, there we go. I see it again out there. So thank you very much for that. The other point, you mentioned in terms of working with ACL, I noticed that it has quite a bit of, when I say relationship, it has a good relationship to Excel. So they would have covered Excel in end user. And now we are actually, like you said at the first time, we met, you said it's Excel on steroids. So we're taking it one step further. Then you even spoke about statistics, and you spoke about mathematics. And you even mentioned things like this if statement, the conditional statements. Now, my students, they may not be IT programming students, Mr. Mandla, but I can assure you, they went through a MATLAB course, and they did some basics of that. They are also busy working on their apps, and in their apps, I showed them an if statement. If a particular button is clicked, something must take place. So I can assure you, Mr. Mandla, I've got some good students out here. I also want to remind you that Mr. Hadebe, the person who has asked you these questions, he is my web, I won't call him my web, I'll call him my stockbroker, right? He's working on the web trading in Standard Bank, and he's going to teach us how to buy and sell shares. And one day he's going to make lots of money for him, and maybe donate to DUT as well. So Mr. Hadebe, this has been a very enlightening talk and a very enlightening experience with ACL and the phases of data analysis. You're not just covering the work in ACL and in IT, but it also covers aspects of auditing, like you mentioned about the salaries and the bonuses. And I think we need that in South Africa, especially in our government, right? Yeah. So I've learned something from here, and I'm sure my students as well. And now the ball is in their court. Like you said, they need to go and log in to create their, access the course with their credentials and basically complete that certification. So students, if you have any queries or questions, please ask now. I know you can also WhatsApp me and send me an email, but here we have the ACL specialist. I'm so happy that they threw you a curveball in terms of the question, and Mr. Mandla went straight into it and answering it. He spoke about the crosstab, he spoke about statistics, he spoke about the graph. So please feel free, ask a question or two. It's we have a few minutes.
Great stuff.
Mr. Similani is typing a question in the chat.
Yeah. Great stuff. Thanks. While Mr. Similani is typing there, yes. So tomorrow we'll at least do the first test. You did indicate that some of the students did get a certificate. So there are 2 certificates there. There's one for actually doing the course, right? Which I'm sure they probably got. There's also the exam for that basics of analytics, right? So I do need them to do that, because that's where you get those CPE hours.
Okay, so what's the cost of that exam, Mr. Mandla?
No, they will do it for free. I've given them access to those ones at least.
Wow, excellent. Now, Mr. Mandla, I'm going to tell you, when they do that course and they get the certification, that's going to account for their course mark. And so it's very, very important that they do it. They can't just listen in and sit back and be a passive audience member. They have to do this. They must do it, and they must get that certificate. And Mr. Mandla, I'd just like to know, can they print that certificate and include it in their CV?
Yes, they can do that. It's a very important certificate. because it does give indication of how you have been exposed in the data analytics space.
Yes.
And ACL is one of the giant data analytics tools in the industry. You do want to brag about having been trained in that.
Okay. So what will be the prospects of gaining employment after they complete the certification, Mr. Mandla?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned in the first session yesterday, that most of the CAEs, in my experience, I even did a presentation in when we met the first time, that they indicated in some of the surveys that they look for auditors that have got some form of data analytic skills, and ACL is one of the leading tools in the industry, especially in the auditing space. And if you've got that, you've got high chances of being employed because you've actually worked with analytics.
Thank you. I wanted you to tell them, Mr. Mandla, because I know that, and this is their motivation for them to study and to complete the certification. So I'm so happy that we have introduced this to the students, and I hope they take advantage of it. So by tomorrow, they should have their certification. So they need to have 2 certificates. Just go through that. One is the basics, Mr. Mandla, and the other one is the one on scripting.
Yeah. So there are 2 certificates that by tomorrow morning they must have, right? Is the basics of analytics, which is the actual training, not the exam yet, right? And the application of filters, which is also the training, right? Not the actual exam. Then tomorrow, what we will do, we'll use that session to do the actual exam for the basics of analytics.
Okay. Okay. And when can they write this examination, Mr. Mandla?
They can. I'm hoping that tomorrow in the session, that 1-hour session, they do the actual exam.
Wow! Wow! Oh my word! You are working so fast, like a Pentium 7. Okay. Teriska, you've completed the certification. Mr. Nair, you said you've done it. I'm not sure if anybody else has indicated that they've completed it. I can see my Dropbox email is popping up. So maybe we can get someone that's qualified at the end of tomorrow's training.
Yeah, so at least for the basics, we'll get someone qualified there. Then we'll, as we go along, we'll build on that and get to another level.
Okay. Will we be able to complete by the end of the semester? The semester ends around about the 1st, 2nd week of June, Mr. Mandla.
That's the basics one. That should be fine. But in terms of level 4, because there's like 1, 2, 3, and 4 levels. And they can do 1, 2, 3 for free. Then level 4, they have to pay for that. But at least doing 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3 before the end of the year, that would be great. So that means at least for the first semester, let them do 1. Then we try and do level 2 and level 3 before the end of the year.
Okay, so I like this strategy. So by the 1st week of June, let's say they should have completed level 1. And the next semester, I'm going to try and get funding for them. I'd like it if students tell me in advance, because I need to prepare a proposal to my dean, and because it's $450. So if we multiply that by 15, that's a lot of money, isn't it, Mr. Mandla?
Yes.
Yes.
Great stuff.
If the students show initiative, I will try my best, and I know Mr. Mandla will as well, to see if we can get funding. So already, Mr. Mandla, it's not free, the course. DUT is paying for it. We have, you purchased the licensing. So I want our students to take advantage of this. Students, nothing in life is free, and what's free, the value associated with it is not that great. So I'm so happy that you are doing this course with students, that you are registering for it. And by tomorrow, I want 2 certificates. I've seen there's about 10 certificates that have popped up, but I'm not sure if it's a screenshot or if it's a certificate. I'll verify that with Mr. Mandla. And so by the 1st, 2nd week of June, I want that level 1 complete. I want that level 1 complete. So you're going to get your course. I know you'll pass this course. There's no two ways about it. I want to give you something extra to this, right? You can boast to everybody, I've done level 1 ACL certification. Wouldn't you like that, Mr. Mandla?
I would very much be happy to say that.
Wow, me too, me too, me too. So am I going to get the commitment from students? Mr. Hadebe, Mr. Naya, Ms. Jagannath, Mr. Kumalo? Come on.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Mr. Kumalo, what do you say yes to?
It's a commitment, sir.
Great. To level 4?
Yes.
Excellent, great. Excellent, excellent. Mr. Hadebe? Which level?
Number one, number one.
Everywhere,
everywhere.
Number 1 or number 2 level? Which level?
I'm not saying like number one level, number one. I'm saying number 1 is excellent.
Okay,
Very
but
good.
you're gonna go for by the end of the year level 4.
Yeah,
okay.
Level 4.
Right, let's take it one level at a time, right? Mr. Naya, which level? Come on, Mr. Naya.
Level 4, sir.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And I'm sure the rest of you as well. Mr. Similani, you can type it in there. Level 1, 2, 3, 4. Which one level, Mr. Similani?
I'm thinking all the way because when I'm looking at the ACL system, it make life easier because at work normally I have to rely on the formulas when I'm preparing the report, when I'm using Excel. But when I'm looking at this ACL, it can easily sort the information the way I want it. So yeah, I'm willing to go all the way up to level 4. Thanks.
Well done, well done. Mr. Mandla, you've got the oral commitment from everybody. Now they need to take what they have said verbally and put it into action.
Great stuff, Doug.
Right. It's 12 o'clock by my time. Thank you, Mr. Mandla. Thank you, students. I'll stop the recording. And we've got a question here from Bongin Kosi.
Yes, I have a problem of logging in. I'm not sure whether my email then is registered on the database. It's Bongi N, but when I'm trying to request the new password, then it says that it's invalid.
It is registered. I'll just quickly check for you. You remember it was in 2019 where you were able to actually log in with it.
Yes.
Yeah, so it is registered. It's probably a matter of forgetting your password, but I'll check for you. What you could do, you can just request a password reset. Then you should get a link to reset your password automatically. But we can take that offline.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Great. Thank you, Bongin Kosi. I'm going to stop the recording now.